My name is Mahmoud with you, the content writer of CRSBD, and of course, it's my pleasure to be the host over here. On behalf of CRSBD, I would like to give a warm welcome toward the entire enthusiastic participants of today's webinar about elements of high-quality research paper. We appreciate you taking your time from busy schedule to join us over here. Through staying with us, you will be able to know about writing abstract, introduction and background of the paper, problem statement and research gap, research question and research objective, systematic literature review, relevancy of theory, methodology of paper, data analysis using appropriate statistical tools, discussion, conclusion and limitation, and about referencing. And then we have our honorable guest panel. First, we have our Professor Dr. Noor Azam Ali, Department of Management and Marketing, School of Business and Economics, Deputy Director, Center for Quality Assurance, University Putra, Malaysia. And then from same university, we have our another guest, Dr. Amir Hamza Zantan, Associate Professor, Department of Marketing and Management, School of Business and Economics, University Putra, Malaysia. As it is our first program of CRSBD, Professor Dr. Noor Azam Ali and Dr. Amir Hamza Zantan are our first guests in this webinar. A special thanks goes to you, sir. In this session with us, we will have our speaker, Dr. Muhammad Mizanur Rahman, Department of Business Administration, Director of Center for Teaching, Research and Publication, CTRP, Metropolitan University, Sylhet, Bangladesh. In addition, Dr. Rahman has already published 60 quality articles in various famous journals. Moreover, I would like to introduce resource person of CRSBD who are present over here. They worked really hard in organizing the webinar. Here we can see our speaker and all the members of CRSBD. Dr. Mizanur Rahman is the speaker in this webinar, and Mahmoudul Islam Chowdhury, I am the host over here. All our members of CRSBD worked really hard to arrange the program. A special thanks goes to you. So my dear audience, long wait is over. Before kicking off our event, I would like to notify that we have said we will take only 100 participants in this webinar. But because of high demand of you and you were highly interested about those webinar, we needed to break our rules and we took nearly 200 participants in this webinar. So now I would like to start the main part of the webinar. I will honorably invite Professor Dr. Noor Azam Ali to deliver his speech toward our audience. Sir, now the platform is presented to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, for this seminar. And welcome to all participants. I can see at the moment 72 participants has been in the Zoom webinar now. Thank you very much for being around, and thank you very much as well for the organizers to invite me as one of the speakers for the session. And I am here to share with you my thoughts and my opinion about the importance of having a quality culture in the first place, and specifically about quality papers. I think other speakers are going to share that later on. And as far as quality culture is concerned, okay, I think this is a very good initiative by the committee, okay, to have this group of discussion of you all who at least have interest in research in the first place, having interest, and also certainly most of you also have started to get yourself involved in doing conducting a research, and on the later stage then you will start to come up with all those expected output in terms of in the form of your thesis, in terms of your report, in terms of your articles, and in terms of your conference paper and other things to come later after your research. But fundamentally, all of these activities is only going to happen unless you have conducted a quality research itself. Okay, so it is very important in the first place for you to be able to come up with a good research before you can continue to proceed with all other kind of outputs that come out of your quality research. At this point, I want to share something that is more general, more broad, as I said just now, which is the quality culture itself. Okay, there are several things that has to be considered to come up with to form a culture. So in this case, it's a research culture. There's one topic called culturalization of research. Means that how to create a culture of people, of community, or people to get involved in not only doing research, having interest in research, getting involved in a research, and also maybe to finance or to sponsor a research activities. Okay, this is what we call as if we can see at one point what you can call as a research culture, So generally, if it is not only a research culture, but also in any other culture, there are three main things supposed to happen. Okay, three main things supposed to happen. So I hope every participant, you can observe this to happen, to continue to happen, in the process of happening. So, and the way that you are involved today, okay, to attend a seminar, webinar kind of things, is actually part of the process in forming a research culture. Number one is the belief. Belief in research, belief in what you're supposed to understand, what it takes to do a research, believe in what is the importance of research, believe in what's supposed to happen. Okay, having a right attitude towards research. Okay, right attitude towards research means you have to be need to have an enthusiast. You have to put value in every research activities that you do. That is the belief that you have to do, that you have to need to have before we can talk about having a quality culture. So that's why, as I said just now, the process that we are doing now is actually one of the approach to make sure that we can clarify our mindset in our life. Okay, certainly there are two different aspects of practical research and academic research. But when we talk about research, these two things has to be understood clearly. What it takes to do a research. That's what we have to understand. I thank you very much, Dr. Mizano and the committee, to have this kind of conference so that somehow or other we can share what we're supposed to understand. That's fundamental. What is supposed to understand what it takes to do a research and to come up with a quality research before we can produce a quality paper, article, thesis, and so on. So in the first place, the fundamental things that we're supposed to settle first is quality of research itself. Number one is the belief, including the attitude, including how we research. What is the element of quality research? That is the right belief that you're supposed to have. Okay, this is one of the good exercise that you are doing now. Somehow or other, there's no shortcut in doing research, because research is a process. Research is a learning experience. Research is something that we have to go through one stage to another stage. That's why the right belief is only happen after we really understand what it takes to do a quality research. Number one is a belief. Number two is the behavior. Okay, I repeat again, I'm still talking about how to create a research culture. Number one, the belief. Number two, the behavior. What is a behavior? The element of act, the element of action, the element of doing, the element of practical, the element of hands-on, the element of practicality of doing a research itself. Okay, I think most of you have registered yourself, either doing postgraduate or whatever research function. So the act of registering or doing research is actually the second part. Okay, many people has a plan to do postgraduate studies, okay, but not yet register, means that the act is not happening. Many people know how to do research, but they're not actually conducting a research. The behavior thing is not happening. Many people, okay, can evaluate other people's research and so on, okay, can read a lot of research article, but until they actually do the research, then the research culture is there. Then only they will experience research. Then they will learn something. Then only they will appreciate what will come out of a research. Okay, so the second thing is the element of act, element of action, element of behavior, element of practicality, element of going through the process, element of understanding what activities need to be happen, and what are the activities need to be done, conducted, and what I said just now is the element of doing itself. So unless we can see people are doing research, then only the research culture is going to happen. Number 3, the element of what you can say is norms. What is a norms? Norms is when everyone is doing it. Norm is every component of research community is actually getting involved with the research activities and so on. Okay, for example, it means that research culture is not only going to happen if it is only going to be done by the researchers only. Researchers need to get other people to involve. For example, the higher institution need to have a policy, need to have an allocation, need to have a center on research. So then only it will support the researchers' activities. The community, for example, when you want to identify a respondent, so the respondent, who are the respondents who are going to give you feedback, fill up your questionnaire, give you the information, share with you the data, kind of things? Those are the community, including the practitioners, the industry, and maybe the general public. Can you see how much involvement is required to create a norms of people who actually can contribute, participate in doing a research? Okay. Number 4 is the sponsor, financier. Either it come from the government or come from institution, come from the industry. So someone need to invest in research. So unless we can have all of these parties getting involved in the research activities, then only we can talk about a research culture has exists in a particular institution, in a particular community, in a particular country. Okay, so this is a process. What does it mean? A process means that one activities after any activities need to happen. Then only we can create all these kind of things. So all participants, you are part of the process. Okay, when we talk about belief, behavior, and norms, you are part of the process. You are part of the system in creating a research culture. So a research culture is something that when we are getting into the culture already, we'll enjoy doing it. We are part of the community. So when everyone is doing, when everyone appreciate what we are doing, when everyone understand at least what we are doing, then we can get all the cooperation from all parties. Okay, somehow or other, it is still a big challenge. Okay, it's still a big challenge, but a culture cannot be created in a short term. There's no shortcut. Okay, there is unless, as I said just now, we talk about norms, we need participation from several parties, or if it is not all, but it is not just the researchers who are going to create a research culture. So what I wanted to share is that the main learning point is, number 1, at least researchers, you all are researchers, we all are researchers, we must understand what it takes to do a research. okay, in terms of the knowledge, understanding, attitude, and so on. Number two, we must take action. We must have hands-on experience. We must conduct research on the action part, or else there is no such thing as a research culture. Number three, we must be able to invite, attract, get involvement, okay, get commitment from all those parties that is required, until a culture is a normal thing, that research is a normal thing that is happening in a particular community, institution, country, and so on. Then only research is part of a common thing that is happening in a particular community and so on. So when we all, I mean, institute, lab, or whatsoever, then only things will get like smooth and normal, and we can achieve what we're supposed to achieve. And then only we will enjoy doing quality research. Then we enjoy doing quality research mean everyone that every activities that we are doing, somehow or other, can get full cooperation from every parties. If you need money, if you need sponsor, we have the sponsor. If we need data, we can simply get participation from other parties to give us, to share us, to even one of the main challenge of researchers, okay, for example, students who are doing PhD and so on, even when you want to distribute your questionnaire, to get response on your questionnaire is a main challenge. But if the research culture is there, we will face less problem, because people will be willingly to participate in your research and share data, share information, and share whatever that you need, so that everyone can enjoy their research activities and can achieve whatever the research objective is all about. Unless we can do quality research, then I hope later part of the session we will share a lot of other information about quality papers, quality output, quality thesis, quality conference paper, and so on. So at this point, I just want to share with you what it takes, what are the requirements in coming up in doing a quality research, is to form or to create a research culture. Okay, with that note, I hope I have shared with you something that will trigger or instigate you all in enjoying. Okay, somehow or other, I hope you will be able to enjoy in doing research, even though it is not easy. Somehow, one day you will appreciate that doing research is something that is about discovering new knowledge. It's about exploring new understanding, is about extending the academic activities and so on. Okay, either you will get yourself involved in academic career or not, some or other research is something that is fundamental, either in economic, in political, in our daily activities, or in as big as coming up with a government policy and so on. Fundamental things to be done is doing a research. Okay. Either we want to relate this in terms of talk about religion, religious activity, whatsoever, to come up with a valid argument, strong discovery, strong opinion. We must back ourselves with a strong point, strong justification after we have done a research. So with that note, I would like to thank the committee to invite me to say something about something that will inspire you all. I hope will inspire you all in going through the process of getting yourself involved as a research community in whatever field you are in, whatever institution that you are working, and in whatever objective of doing research that you will get onto. Okay, thank you very much, particularly to Dr. Mizano, who has personally invited me, and Dr. Rahman and all other committee members. I hope you all will be successful in whatever that you wanted to do, and will achieve the objective of doing this conference or seminar, and the barakah will be there. So can you imagine everyone doing good research? You will be rewarded for the good deeds that you are doing now. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir,
you very much.
for your discussion. You have shared lots of amazing tips, and those are really effective from your experience. Hope all our audience is well satisfied. At this moment, I would like to honorably invite Dr. Amir Hamza Zantan to deliver his speech. Sir, the platform is yours now.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Mahmudul, for being the host and also for welcoming us to this seminar. Thank you also, Mizanul. Thank you everyone for being here. Mizanul have asked me to share with you why research is important. I believe everyone is well aware why research is important. We do it because we want to build knowledge. We want to find out more about knowledge. And for example, when we conduct research, is about wanting to contribute to knowledge. So that is one of the things that you do when you do your master's degree, when you do your PhD, is about contributing to the knowledge corpus. What is it that you are contributing to the already existing knowledge? When we do research also, it helps us to understand things. It helps us to facilitate learning. We learn more about things that we are researching about. It makes us want to read more. It makes us want to write, want to analyze, and then in the process, we feel the desire to share this valuable information that we have. We feel passionate about the knowledge that we have, and we believe that it should be shared and spread to as many people as possible. That is, I believe, one of the reasons why we are having this seminar today. And later, Mizanur will talk about how to write a high quality research paper. Another reason why we do research is it helps us to understand issues. There are so many issues happening in the world. I believe in your respective countries also, you have issues. I remember browsing the other day in one of the databases. Although, for example, COVID-19 happened around December last year, and currently there are already 78,000 articles written about COVID-19 in that one database alone. That's how much people write. That's how much we can do research. We can write about to help inform others about things. I believe, for example, these 78,000 articles on COVID-19 will help to increase in terms of public awareness about COVID-19 itself. Although we can see all over the world, some of the countries are doing better because they base their decisions on the scientific data that they have, the research that was done, and then they make the certain decisions and those countries become better. But there are also cases of countries where they do not want to listen to their scientists and make it a political decision, and we see that cases are rising by the day. I remember this morning I heard that in the US alone, the daily number of COVID-19 cases is 70,000 per day. That's how much it is. But the leadership of the country does not want to listen to the scientists, and then they think it is a political issue. So that is one of the things that we can help the population to understand whatever issues that we think is important to the nation. Doing research is, of course, something that would help us to nourish our mind. It is an exercise for the mind because we have to read, we have to write, we have to analyze, and it keeps the brain being active and being sharp all the time. A good case in point is our former Prime Minister. He is 95 years old, but one of the things that he does is to read every day, and although he's 95, his mind is sharp, and he's able to analyze many things. So I hope today you would be able to learn, you'll be able to share, you would benefit from the sharing by Mizanur, and you will be able to later write papers that will contribute to the knowledge that we already have in our respective fields. So thank you, Muhammadul. Back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your discussion and your inspirational speech. Only research can find the new dimension for a solution of a problem. Thank you so much, sir. So now I would like to invite Dr. Muhammad Mizanur Rahman to deliver his speech. He is our speaker in this session. Sir, the platform is yours. Thanks.
Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening to everyone. So can I share my screen, please? Yes.
Sure, sir.
Is it okay for you, everybody, please? The slide is clear?
Yes, sir, the slide is clear.
Yes, sir. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening to everyone. Actually, I particularly special thanks to all of the today's participants. Actually, I will try level my best to share some of my opinions regarding research. And before that, I especially thanks to actually two of my honorable professors, actually Professor Dr. Noor Azman Ali and Associate Professor Dr. Amir Hamza Jonathan. Okay, so today's our first session is actually the session consists of the elements of high quality research paper. So step by step, actually, I will try to discuss all of these things. So if anybody wants to write a quality research paper, what are the essential elements are required? I am sure that everybody you know about this thing, but actually I will try level my best to make it more easier so that you can easily understand, and hopefully that you will be able to write a good paper after having this seminar. Okay. So the first slide is basic concept about research. Now, if we see that research, and if we just make it focus on this word research, we will get two important words. First one is re, and second one is search. That means, what is the meaning of re? Re means actually repetitive or concurrent, that is happening regularly. And search means you have to look something, and in order to reach, in order to get something. Okay, that means if we just combine two words, you have to search something repetitively or concurrently in order to reach a particular solution. Then simply it is a research. Okay, but if we go to the formal definition of research, we will see that research is a systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation of data. That means you have to collect data. After collecting the data, you must analyze the data, and after analyzing data, you will get findings. That means interpretation of data. For what? For solving certain questions or solving a certain problem. This is the basic idea about research. But what is research paper? When you, can publish your findings in a good reputed journal, then it will come research paper. That means research and research paper is not same thing. After completing your research, if you cannot publish from a reputed journal or from a good journal, ultimately it will not turn into a paper. Okay, so our fundamental objective after this seminar, actually after this webinar, that we should do research and publish from a good journal, a reputed journal. Then it will be a research paper. Now, main structure or elements of a research paper. Everybody know that in every good journals and every reputed journals, they have some different structures of a paper. But this is the common structure of a research paper. That means these four components are must. You cannot ignore any of the components. But if we just look at the shortly, then we can say this IMARD, I-M-R-A-D. Here, actually, I for introduction. Definitely your paper must have a good introduction. Okay. Then M for methods. That means for which methodology you have, imposed in your research paper. It may be the qualitative methods, it may be the quantitative methods, whatever it is. But methodology is must in a paper. Then results. Definitely after completing your data analysis, then you will get some results or findings. And A for end is not essential here. And last one is D for discussion. This is really, really important. You know that modern of the reputed journals are instructed that you must have a good discussion. Without having a discussion, the paper will automatically reject it. That means these are the 4 basic components of a research paper. Now, are these only 4 the components of a research paper? No. Apart from these main 4 components, there are some additional points. But though it is additional points, you cannot ignore it. You have to must put in your paper. First one is abstract. You must have a good abstract. Second one is literature review, implications and contributions, limitations, area for future research, and last one is conclusion. So inshallah, next slides, we will discuss, we will share our opinion step by step, how we can write a good introduction, how we can write a good abstract, literature review, how we can write a good discussion part. Then inshallah, we will try to learn something. In the next slide, components of a structured abstract. So you know that this part should, this part is supposed to be written after completing all of your components. But you know that as the slides is the first, so we will try to discuss the components of the abstract here the first. Now, you know that why abstract is important. It has been researched that almost 80 to 90% research papers have been rejected by the editors, only for the chief editors, only based on a abstract. If they found that yes, your abstract is not well organized, even they will not send your paper for the reviewing. Okay, even they will not send your paper for reviewing. Okay, so editors directly can reject your papers. That means your abstract should be well structured. And you know that abstract is said to be the mirror of a paper. That means if anybody reads your abstract, then if you can satisfy him or her or editor by your abstract, then they will send your paper to the reviewers. So this is very important thing. So how we can write a good abstract and what are the essential components of a abstract? Okay, based on my experience, these are the 6 components. These 6 components are must in order to get a structured abstract. First one, a short background. Definitely a short background is essential with the motivation of the research. That means you should inform to the readers actually why the research is important. Why? It's just your main motivation. Okay, but don't try to make a conflict between motivation and objective. Objective and background is not the same thing. Just you let them know this is the main issues, this is the main regions that I'm going to conduct the research. Okay. Second one is objective. Must you have to put here the fundamental objective of your research. Without fundamental objective, you cannot write an abstract. Okay, this is a very simple thing. Then a brief methodology. In this part, you need to inform the readers as well as the reviewers whether your paper will be qualitative or quantitative, whether it is. But how you have collected that data, that means data collection procedure. What are the sample size? How many you have covered? What the sampling technique you have used? What are the statistical tools you have used? You have to write all of these things in this part. That is a brief methodology. You cannot ignore it. You have to. And whether after completing your data, now is the time to get your major findings. Definitely you will get several findings, but it's your responsibility to put only the major findings based on your title, based on your fundamental objective. Okay, so you must put your major findings and results in the abstract part. And after completing the major findings and findings, now it's time to give you the implication of the findings and recommendations. What does implications? You know that modern research do not support the implication for the managerial or like things. You should try to give the implication of theory as well as implication of practical or managerial. Then you should focus on 2. But you know that sometimes abstracts the word limit. There are some word limits. So if it is happened, there are word limits is too short, then you can only focus on theoretical implications if you use the theory in your research. Otherwise, you can go for the managerial implications. And last one is limitations. Definitely, you must have limitation. That means all of the variables, all of the contents, all of the context are not possible to cover in your single research. So you have to give the limitations, and you should suggest to the other researchers to cover from these limitations. So end of the day, if you can cover all of these things, you have a good background, your objective is very clear, and you have put the methodology clearly, and findings are clear, and you have also put theoretical and managerial implications and limitations and area for further research. You imagine that your abstract will be very structured. Nobody can reject your abstract. Okay. Now the question is that so many researchers actually ask the question that what the limitation of an abstract. Actually, there is no answer about the limitation of the abstract. You know that you have to totally depend on the journal guidelines. If the journal asks you to put 150, you have to write 150. If it is happened that in the last paper of mine, actually I submitted in MRL, the requirement was even it can be more than 300, no problem. So I have to write almost 300 in my good abstract. So it totally depends on, the journal guidelines. So is it clear to you? Please, can you share me that whether you are listening me or not?
Yes, we can hear you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Now, introduction. You know that based on my experiences during my PhD as well as writing a paper, this is the most difficult part of a paper, introduction. Okay, and I really still struggle a lot. To write a structured introduction. Because this is really tough. Okay, now, so our objective is to make it more easier and more formal. Now, my request is to you that if you can follow these 6 components, then you will get, end of the day, you will get a structured introduction. First one, background and motivation. Okay. Now, you should inform to the readers or reviewers what is the background. That means, for example, you are doing a research like corporate governance or like work-family conflict. Okay. So you should, inform to the readers that what was the previous condition of work-family conflict or corporate governance. Now, and what is the existing condition? That means you have to let them inform the previous condition and the present condition, and in which basis, that means in which present condition you are doing the research. That means the motivation of doing research. That means you have to find out the really a good motive to conduct a research. That means you should start with the background and motivation in the introduction part. Second one is content and context of your topics. Sometimes it is called rationality of the rationality of the research. Content means what are the conditions and what are the variables you are using. You know that this is not an easy task. Sometimes we unnecessarily select some variables, but these variables may not suitable for this research. That means your variable selection should be very appropriate, and you should clearly justify why these variables have been selected here. Okay, and you should clear concept to the readers or reviewers about your used variables. This is called conditions or content. And contents means who are directly and indirectly involved. That means who are your sample size, in which area you are covered. Just few days ago, I submitted a paper, and they told that why only the private universities, why not public universities, why only academicians, why only academicians of private university. That means you must give a strong justification of your sample selection as well as area of selection. Okay, that's why I have written here justification of their involvement. Okay, so you must give a strong justification for selecting your sample size and area of your research. That is called context of your research. So when you will finish your content and context after background. Okay, now number 3 is problem statement and gaps. You know that this part, problem statement and gaps, are called the heart of a research. You know that during my PhD, when I wrote my problem statement and I saw my supervisors, doctor, can you see my problem statement? Then my first supervisor, actually, who has gone for the retirement, she always told, your problem statement has a problem. Your problem statement is a problem. That means I didn't know how to arrange the problem statement and identify the gaps. Okay, so after this slide, actually, we will learn how to select your problem statement and gaps. And for your kind information, I want to say that after today's session, we will learn only the theoretical knowledge about how to write a good paper. But we have a plan actually to focus on the practical example based on this theoretical knowledge. That will be the different webinar. So today's webinar just we will learn about the theoretical things. But practical things after this, based on this slide. So practical things we will learn from the another webinar because the time limitation. So in the next slide, we will learn about how to select the problem statement and gaps, but you cannot ignore it. Without problem statement and gaps, if you try to submit a paper, no, they will not accept it. This is really, really crucial stage, problem statement and gaps. So next slide, we will learn how to select a problem statement and how to identify the gaps. Then application, you should describe a little bit application and contributions, who will be benefited from this research. You should let them know, the reviewers. And last one, after selecting the problem statement and gaps, I'm repeating, after selecting the problem statement and gaps, now it's your responsibility to find out some objectives in relation to your research title, in relation to your research problem and gaps. Okay, this is the last part, but this is not a last part. Modern good, publishers and researchers, actually journals are suggesting that end of the introduction, you should give a good, arrangement of the paper. That is how you have, how you are going to the next step after arrangement, after introduction. That means after introduction, I am going to do the literature review, and literature review consists of two parts, like theoretical literature review, empirical literature review. And after completing that, I will go for the methodology, and end of the day, we have written a conclusion. This you should mention a arrangement paragraph. That means the reader will understand how you have designed your whole papers. Is it clear? So first, you must start your introduction with the background and motivation. Then you must cover content and context of your topics. Then problem statement and gaps, research gaps, application and contributions, objectives, and arrangement of the paper. And I'm sure that if you just follow these 6 basic components, end of the day, you will get a good introduction. So research questions, objective, and hypothesis. I've just put all of these things together. Research questions, objective, and hypothesis. I have an intention why I have put all of these 3 things in a single slide. You know that research questions, objectives, and hypothesis are interrelated. That means what the research questions are, your objectives must be based on your research question. And what are the objectives of your hypothesis must be related to your objectives. That's why in the last part of this slide, I have written that research questions, objective, and hypothesis are interrelated. Okay, now only in this topic, I'm just discussing about the objective, how you can select a good objective. Okay, your objective, first criteria, your objective must be related to your gaps and problem statement. That means you cannot ignore your problem statement and gaps. That means you have to formulate, you have to try to develop your objective based on your problem statement and gaps. This is really, really important. Okay, unnecessary, you just formulating some hypothesis or objectives. There is no relevancy, there is no relationship between problem statement and your gaps, or like objective, no value. Okay, so your objective should be related to your gaps and problem statement. And the objective must be specific and clear. Okay, that means objective should be specific and clear. And there are 2 types of objectives sometimes, like fundamental objective or main objective. And there are sometimes a specific objectives. That means in order to achieve your fundamental objective, what are the supporting objectives are essential. But those supporting objectives should be, number 3, logical and ordered and sequential. That means unnecessary, for example, that you have an objective that mediating effect, to identify the mediating effect of something. But in the first step, you have written that to identify the mediating effect of this thing is my first objective. In the next objective, you have written that to show the direct effect. You see, there is no logical sequence. That means you have to first, put the direct objective. Then you are allowed to go for the indirect objective. That means your objective should be logical and ordered, sequential in relation to your problem statement and gaps. Another important thing that we are doing mistakes Actually, when you will select your objectives, you should use some action verbs. Okay, different action verbs. For example, you have 4 objectives. Okay, now each of the objectives you have written that to find out, to find out, to find out, to find out. It looks too odd, you know that. That's why you have to use different action verbs. For example, the first one to investigate, second one to describe, third one to identify, and another one is to measure, to compare. Okay, so based on your nature of the objective, you have to use different types of action verbs. Clear? Now, I should go for the gaps and problem statement. Before starting this thing, or I mean slides, just I will repeat almost 3 times in a single sentence, and you need to keep on your mind. If you want to really, I mean, design your problem statement and gaps very organized way. Remember it that all gaps are problem, but all problems may not your gaps. I'm repeating again, all gaps are your problems, but all problems are not your gaps. Okay, what I'm saying, I will repeat it again. All gaps are your problems, but all problems are not your gaps. Okay, now how you can design a good problem statement? You know that rather in a good paper, they will not more focus on the problems, rather they will look for where are the gaps. And you know that all of the gaps are problems. So if you can identify the gaps clearly, definitely you just fulfill the problem statement. You just fulfill the condition to get a problem statement, because already I told that all of the gaps are problem statement. Okay, now what is problems? You know that if you do not do the research, or if you do not focus this issue, what are the possible problems? This is simply the problems. Okay, so you need to know that, for example, my research area like work family conflict and well-being, okay, and work-life balance. And if you cannot make your life well balanced, then what are the problems? What might be the problem? This is the part of the problem statement. This is the simple thing. But now I already mentioned that your fundamental objective will be to focus or to find out the gaps clearly. Now, what is gaps? Gaps means that you didn't focus. Still, the researchers didn't focus in this particular area. That's why I have written here that yet to be focused. That means it's your responsibility to focus on this particular issue. That means other researchers have done it, but didn't do it. But it's your responsibility to find out their gaps and try to fill up their gaps by setting some objectives. Now, when you will select your gaps or identify your gaps, you need to focus on 3 things. This is very important thing. Number 1, context. Number 2, content. Number 3, theory. Sorry. So number 1, contextual gap, content gap, and as well as theoretical gap. And I do strongly believe that if you can finish these 3 types of gaps in your paper or whatever in your thesis, definitely it will be a good paper. Now, what is contextual gap? Contextual gap is that means other countries or developing countries like focused on it, but in your particular area, that has not been yet much focused. Another thing is that gap means that nobody did it. This is not. That gap means less attention has been given. Less attention has been given. Then that means there is an opportunity to still focus on this research issue, because we have a misconception that the things even didn't happen in the world. This is only the gap. No, only the less attention has been given. For example, in work-family conflict or work-life balance, still is the researchable issues in developing countries. But in terms of work, I mean, in terms of developing countries like Australia, New Zealand, then USA, already this matter is already settled. But still in developing countries, there is a chance to do the research. That means this is contextual gap. You know that content gap is more important than contextual gap for PhD as well as for a good paper. So I think contextual gap is clear. That means you need to identify the area. That means still this area has an opportunity to work. This is contextual gap. You need to focus on that this area still less attention has been given. Content means here you research variable gaps. For example, I want to see that you see that if you just see a paper like work-family conflict, job satisfaction, corporate governance, on performance, most of the people are trying to only focus on the direct effect. Okay, but less attention has been given the indirect effect like moderating or mediating. Even recently, it has found that already so many people are already focusing on moderating and mediating, but less attention has been given moderated mediating, mediated moderating. That means you need to know them that this area is still, this variable is still ignored. Okay, so this is the content gap, or I mean variable gap. So you have already identified two types of gaps: contextual gap, that is based on your areas; content gaps based on your research variable. That's why when I did my PhD, actually during my PhD, all of my supervisors asked me, where is your content gap? Where is your new variables? I'm sure that you are still struggling this thing. So where is your new variable, or where are you new variables? That means the supervisor is asking you, where are you new variables? This is the content gap. Okay, that means variables gap. And last one is theory. You know that to find out the theoretical gap is very, very, very difficult. During my PhD, actually, I almost spent 1 year to find out the theoretical gap. Okay, so I will let you show into the next slide how you can identify the theoretical gap. But as earlier I mentioned that it is not our practical session, so I didn't more focus on this practical thing. So inshallah, next webinar we will focus on it. So theoretical gap means that in your research, so many theories, I'm repeating, in your particular research, so many theories have been used, but you are not allowed in a paper like used to whole theories, like 6, 7, or 8 theories. No, you have to select 1 or 2 even theories, but you need to give a strong justification why you have used only these 2 theories or only 1 theory, and you have to mention the limitations of other theories, because this is the gap. Actually, they didn't mention in their particular theory. That's why I didn't use the other theories. Rather, I have selected only this 1 or 2 theory. This is called theoretical gaps. What I am saying seems to you that this is very simple, but you know that this is really, really difficult to identify the theoretical gap. So if you can identify the contextual gap, if you can identify the content gap, if you can identify the theoretical gap in a single paper, I'm sure that your paper will be very, very good and nobody can reject it. Okay, so this is the general speech of the gaps and problem statement. So still, if you have any problem in the end of the session, just you can ask me the question. Literature review. This is another important part. You know that all of the parts are very important. So you know that in order to design your literature review systematically, you must be very strategic person. Otherwise, you will read so many papers, and end of the day you will be bored. Then you cannot identify which paper is important, okay, and which things I can take it from this particular paper. That means you have to be very carefully, not only carefully, you have to be very systematic in terms of, designing your literature review. And first one is skimming. You know that skimming means you have to be very strategic person. So I did during my PhD, and when I wrote any kind of paper, actually I follow these 3 important things, okay, because in order to write a particular paper, you must collect at least 20 to 25 papers, but thesis is a different thing, okay? So you have to collect 20 or 25 papers, even sometimes 30 papers. But is it possible to read whole 30 papers? Yes, I did during 2016. I read the whole papers. Even I couldn't find the important things, okay? For example, just one paper consists of 6,000 words, and I have read almost, I took almost 4 hours to complete the papers. And after reading whole of the papers, I found that, yes, this paper is no relevant, just is waste my time, okay? So you should not waste your time. Now, how you can minimize your time to design a good literature review? First one is skimming. Skimming is that you should, when you will collect your papers, you should read your abstract carefully. Okay, why I am telling it? Because as earlier I mentioned in the very second slide in my presentation that an abstract usually consists of 6 important components. If it is a good paper, I am repeating, if it is a good paper, but if the paper is not published from a good journal, maybe you cannot get anything from the abstract, like objective and finding something else. But if it is well structured paper, definitely you will get 6 important things in abstract. And in the abstract, you have found that yes, it's a quantity paper, and you are also doing the quantity paper. That means I should read the paper. And in the last part of the abstract, you found that in the first part of the abstract, you found that this is the fundamental objective of the paper, and your objective is almost similar to him or her objectives. Then you should read the paper. That means when you will be understood that this abstract is, effective, this paper is effective, then you should go to the introduction part. But I am requesting that not to read the introduction full. Okay, just focus on last part of the introduction, because most of the good papers in the last part of the introductions, your research gaps, problem statement are given there. Okay, I'm sure when you will read it in the last part of the introduction in a good paper, you will see the problem statement, gaps, as well as the fundamental objective. And if you see that yes, this is very relevant, then no need to go for the findings, no need to go for methodology, directly go to the limitations and area for future research. Why? Because their limitations, remember it, their limitations is your gap. So in their limitations and future research, further for research, they mention what they mention. This is your potential gaps. This is your potential gaps. So if you think that yes, it is a very good gap, then you can proceed on. You can just read the paper. You can just sort out the paper. Yes, this paper is very important. So I will just focus on this thing later. Another paper, read the abstract carefully. Last part of the introduction, limitation and area for further research. You know that this skimming procedure is very, very important. It is said that if you are a good skimmer, then you should not, be a problem to design the literature review. Now, after skimming, when you will write your own literature, then you have to follow these three, chronology. First, conceptual literature review. Second, theoretical literature review, and third one is empirical literature review. But in a thesis, it's possible to write this way. But in a paper, you cannot give that conceptual literature review, theoretical literature review, empirical literature review. No. In a paper, you have to write, you have to cover everything, but without the heading. Just for your better understanding, just I put here the heading. Like conceptual literature review. What does it mean? You see, I have written here, need to focus on only the basic concept of your research variables. That means how many variables, how many issues, how many components you have taken in your research. You should let the readers or editors to know clearly what are the basic concept about your research variables. Okay. For example, corporate governance, work family conflict, HRM practices, these are your issues. You need to mention it very clearly, okay, in the literature review part. But in this part, you are not allowed to show any kind of relationship among your variables. Okay, when you will be able to find out the variables, I will let you show. Then another one is theoretical literature review. You know that some of the journals actually now instruct that when you will design your literature review, please try to focus first in theoretical literature review. Okay, but I have designed it in my own way. But still, if you think that you can also first focus on theory, you can do it. Just give me 1 minute. What is theoretical literature review? You know that I have written here that based on the assumption of your use theory or theories. That means you have to use a particular theory or theories. So these theories must have some assumptions. Okay, based on the assumptions, try to find out your research variables or research components. This is really, really important. And you know that almost 90% researchers do the mistakes. They are not following the appropriate assumptions of the theory. Rather, unnecessary, they are just selecting the variables. But when it will go for the editors or for the PhD final viva, so many questions will arise. What are the assumptions and where is the relevancy of your components and assumptions? Okay, so I will let you show into the next slide. So how you can now the main thing is that you have to focus and you have to read the theory carefully to find out for the assumptions, and based on the assumptions you need to identify your research components and research variables. Okay, last one is empirical literature review. Now after using your theory and theoretical assumption, your research variable are on your hand. Now in this last stage, you have to show the relationship among the research variable. For example, dependent to independent, independent to moderating, independent to mediating, mediating to moderating, whatever it is. Now it's the part this is the part you can show the whole relationship among the research variable. I think you are clear what is the basic difference between conceptual, theoretical, empirical. In the conceptual part, you just need to give the basic concept of your variables. Theoretical, just based on the assumptions of theory, it's your fundamental responsibility to find out your research variables or components. And last part, empirical literature review means in this stage, you are really supposed to show the relationship among the research variables. And this is the one slide only for the literature review. Okay, so if you follow this thing, I think you will not struggle to write a good literature review. Now, theories and frameworks. Okay, this is really important thing. Theories and frameworks. As earlier I mentioned that you should identify your appropriate theories or theory. And after identifying the appropriate theory, now you should read carefully the assumption of those particular theory or theories. Based on the assumptions, now your task will be to find out the research components or research variables. This is all about theories. So we no need to memorize any definition of theories. So theories means find out the assumptions and try to relate your research variable with that particular assumption. This is simple thing. But frameworks. Frameworks means there are so many frameworks. You know that during my PhD in Malaysia, I just conducted so many workshops and so many participants asked me that what's the basic difference between theoretical framework, conceptual framework, research framework? These are the basic questions. Okay. So my request to you that as today's seminar webinar is only research paper, so we will focus on only research framework. It is always suggested in a paper you should not follow the theoretical framework or conceptual framework. Rather, you should focus on only the research frameworks. So I will let you show what is the basic difference between theoretical framework and research framework. Okay, but framework, you see that framework provides an explicit explanation why the problem under study exists and showing how variables are related to each other. That means it's a pictorial view. That means you have to scratch or you have to, sketch a picture, and in that particular picture, you have to show the variables in relation to your theories. So theories and frameworks are different things. But as earlier I mentioned, frameworks are three types usually: conceptual, theoretical, and research framework. But today we will know only for the research framework. Now, theory. You see that I have used in my research area, actually, I have used only two theories in my whole papers. Okay, work family border theory and conservation of resource theory. So before selecting this theory, you know that in work family conflict and well-being related research, there are so many theories. Okay, there are so many models. But why I have selected only these two theories? Okay, and before coming this issue, I had to mention in my paper, in my thesis, that these are the limitations of other theories. That's why I didn't use the other theories. Rather, I have selected only two theories, like work family border theory and conservation of resources theory. Now, why I have to go for two theories? Why not one theory? In the final viva during my PhD, they asked me, why only two theories? Only one theory is enough, but why you have used two theories? I will let you show. You see that in my research, actually, there are two independent variables. Now, both independent variables and dependent variables are covered by the first theory. Okay, that is work family border theory. But in my research paper, actually, I had to use another variable, that is intervening variables, like moderation as well as mediation. And work family balance, work family support was my moderation as well as mediation. Okay, you know that work family balance and work family support both are situational resources. Both are situational resources. That's why I have to use another theory, conservation of resources theory, as well as conservation of resources theory. But if it is only direct effect, like work family conflict and well-being, and if I select conservation of resource theory, immediately my paper will be rejected, because there is no relevancy to select conservation of resource theory. I should only select work family border theory. But in my research, as I have used work family balance and work family support, which are situational resources, then I have to look for another theory. I found that conservation of resource theory is more appropriate. You know that you see that there are two theories, and all of my variables are covered by two theories. But in a paper and in a thesis, you are not use these types of framework, two frameworks. You have to use one framework. Okay, but you see there are two frameworks or like models. But now it's your responsibility to combine these two theories into a single framework. And when you will be able to combine these two theories into a single framework, the name of this framework will be theoretical framework, not research framework. I just repeat again, when you will be able to combine these two theories into a single framework, this framework will be called as a theoretical framework, not research framework. Now it's my responsibility to combine these two theories into a single framework. This is, you see, theoretical model or theoretical framework, whatever it is. And you see that I have written here that arrow, conservation of resource theory using, I have found work family balance. Conservation of resource theory used work family supports, but work family conflict and family work conflict used by work family border theory. This is theoretical framework. But have you seen any objective here? Have you seen any hypothesis here? No. So when you will fill your hypothesis, fill your objective by putting some hypothesis, it will turn the research framework. So I think you got the idea, the difference between theoretical framework and research framework. So into the next slide, I will show what can be the research framework. And as earlier I mentioned, in a paper, usually don't try to show the theoretical framework. Rather, you should show only the research framework. That is it. Research framework. Now I have put all of the hypotheses here. Maybe here 7 hypotheses. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So I didn't put here any theoretical relevancy here. You see, no theoretical relevancy. But in the previous slide, in the previous part, I have already shown the theoretical framework. But research framework, when you will put all of your hypotheses based on your objective, this is called research framework. So it is very essential to understand the difference between research framework and theoretical framework. I think you are clear. Just a minute. Okay. After completing all of this theory objective, now it's your part to develop your methodology. Okay. In basic, actually, this is not the webinar for the methodology. So in future, maybe after this ETH, actually, we have another plan to make a webinar on methodology. So you know that in a methodology webinar, actually, it will take whole days. Okay, whole day. So just I will give you the basic idea about the methodology. You cannot ignore these components if you want to write a methodological systematically, right? First one, you need to focus on research design. Before that, you should focus on research purpose like ontology, epistemology, research paradigm, okay? Then research approach like inductive research, deductive research, whatever it is. But today's session is not like that. But you have to start from the research design. You must focus on research design. You must focus on population, sample size determination, sampling technique, data collection, adapting measurement of scale, pre-test and pilot test. So you should focus on these important issues in your methodology. Now, I'm focusing on only 1 or 2 slides on methodology because this is very important thing. Sampling technique. You know that almost 80% researchers are struggling to select an appropriate sampling technique. Okay. But before that, just you can read it: population sampling, sampling from sample. I think you have a very good idea about these things. So I no need to, describe all of these things. Rather, you can go for the either probability sampling or non-probability sampling. You know that these 2 types of sampling techniques. So out of these 2 types, there are almost 10 different types of sampling technique. And out of the 10 different sampling techniques, it's your responsibility to select 1 or 2 sampling technique. But if you select only 1 technique, this is single sampling technique. But if you use 2 or 3 sampling technique in a research, simple research, this is called multi-stage sampling technique, which is most difficult. So today's session is not like that. So for example, you have used convenience sampling and someone is used stratified sampling, but just you have mentioned that I have used stratified sampling in your research paper. This is not enough. You have to give the proper justification. Why stratified sampling? What are the relevancy to use stratified sampling in your paper? Okay, why you have used convenience sampling? You have to give a strong justification, and without having a strong justification, unnecessary, if you select any sampling technique, end of the day, it will not be a fruitful research. Okay, so my suggestion is to you that whatever you will select, that must have a good justification. It might be probability sampling, it might be non-probability sampling. Usually, non-probability sampling is used for, usually, I'm repeating usually, qualitative research. But probability sampling, I mean for the quantitative research, but sometimes convenience and judgment sampling also can be used for the quantitative research. So as I promised that I will take another session for the methodology. So in future, inshallah, we'll discuss in details. Sample size. This is another question, common problems. So, brother, what should be the sample size? What is the size is essential. You do know that just I always follow in the modern pattern. That means the reference of Hire et al. 2016. That there are three conditions, like 15 respondents per parameters. Okay, parameter means how many variables you have, and under the variables how many items you have. For example, you have 5 variables, and each of the variables contains of 3 items. That means 5 into 3, 15 items, and 15 items into 15 respondents. That means it will be your sample size. This is very traditional, and Hire also suggested it. But if you have an intention to use either covariance-based structural equation modeling or PLS, then 100 to 150 are enough for sample size. If the reliability of the your sample size is too high, it's more than 0.9. If the reliability is more than 0.9, then you can conduct your research using 100 and 150. But if you know that to get the high reliability is very difficult. Sometimes that's why if it is happened that if it is more than 150 to 400, this is very, very enough. But still, there in internet, if you look the internet, based on your variables, based on your parameters, based on your effect size, whatever it will be, small effect size, large effect size, medium effect size, there are so many, there are so many instruments to use the sample size. But you know that when I use this calculation in my thesis or in my paper, they will ask almost 1,000, more than 1,000 sample size. It's very difficult. That's why if you follow these Hire Ringel 2016-17 articles, they suggest if your respondents are 100, more than 150, that is enough. But there is a question: if the unit of analysis is industry or farm, then the different thing. So when I will do methodology section, I will discuss it. Okay, but I am telling about only the people, only the employees of 150 and 400. But if I tell you that 400 industry, it's not fair. It's not fair. Okay, so depend on unit of analysis, the number can be varied. This is all about sample size. Major components of data analysis. I'm just focusing on quantitative purpose. So basically, we will do another webinar on qualitative. Okay, so whatever is quantitative, actually you need to maintain all of this chronology, especially for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, these 7 things must. That means you have to enter your data accurately. If you just so many mistakes to enter your data, ultimately your result will be, your result will not be good. Then you have to consider the missing values, outliers, normality, demographic profile. Factor analysis is the different thing. Okay, so when you will select factor analysis, you must have a good justification, because EFA and CFA is the different thing. EFA means exploratory factor analysis, CFA means confirmatory factor analysis. So in a same research, you should not use EFA and CFA in a same research. If you use, you must have a good justification. Okay, like it's the different thing. Okay, so but when you will use missing values, outliers, normality, demographic profile, no need to put all of the tables in your papers. Just you should give the results, because if you put all of your results as a table, unnecessarily the length of the paper will be long. Okay, this is the preliminary analysis. But when you will fill up your fundamental analysis using CBSEM, PLSSEM, now you need to know when CBSEM, when PLSSEM, when SPSS. Okay, because I have the good control over only these 3 softwares. I don't know any other softwares. Okay, so when you have to use CBSEM, PLSSEM, the justification is totally different. When is the SPSS, the totally different. But if you have an intention to do for research using for the theoretical assumptions and theory testing, you can go for the CBSEM. But if your intention is to make your findings generalization, you can go for the PLS. And if your data is not normal, you can go for the PLS. But normality is must. If you have so many missing values, you can go for PLSSEM. Okay, but for moderation analysis, my suggestion, my request is to you that please do it using SPSS. Okay, using categorical data or continuous data, because SPSS, the result of SPSS in relation to moderation analysis is more appropriate. I have found that so many renowned researchers, they have used their direct effect using CBSTM, but when they have go for the moderation, they have used, I mean, SPSS. Okay, like G Power software, there is a then process macro using process macro, you can do it. But it's still, if you have intention your moderation using CBSTM, you can use it. But in that case, it is not moderation, it is called multi-group analysis. Whatever you will do it, you need to follow all of these components of a data analysis. And after completing your data analysis, now you will get some results. Okay, and most of the researchers will do mistake that after completing the results, they just directly go to the conclusion. Most 3 or 4 important parts they are not focusing. This is the difference between good papers and the, I mean, less qualified papers. Okay, so after completing the data analysis, you will get some findings. Now you have to give the justification in relation to the other researchers, and as a separate point, that is called discussion of the findings. Discussion of the findings. So don't try to put the findings and discussion in a same paragraphs. You know that some of the papers can do it, but still you cannot ignore the discussion part. You have to discuss of your findings. Now look at this thing, discussion of the findings. I have already said that how you can design your discussion of the finding. I have just put one of my findings in one of my papers. Okay, and another things, most of the researchers in the world, they are worried about the findings of the research. You know that when the hypotheses have been rejected, they are becoming too worried. Even during my PhD, I almost 4 of my major hypotheses were rejected. Then I went to my supervisor, doctor, I found that 4 of my major hypotheses are rejected. What will be my situation? Then my doctors or my supervisors told, don't worry about this thing. Okay, if your hypotheses have been rejected, no problem, just try to find out some references, and if you still cannot finding the reference, you have to give the strong justification, strong explanations why this thing is happened. Okay, this is the discussion of the findings. For example, hypothesis 5, it is rejected. Okay, and the hypothesis was that work-family balance might mediate the relationship between independent and dependent variable, but I found that work-family balance does not mediate. That means already my hypothesis has been rejected. Not only that, it violates the theoretical assumption, because theoretical assumption said it's a resource, okay, and it can mediate, but my result shows it does not have any mediation effect. Then what will be the situation? Don't worry about this. You know that if these types of result, if you can find in your research or in your paper, then it's more chance to accept, because this is totally a new thing. Okay, but if your all hypotheses are accepted, for example 5 or 6 hypotheses, and all of your hypotheses are accepted, then the editors or the examiners of the PhD supervision, that where are your new contribution, because it is already proved, it has been already proved, so where are your new contribution? So then when my supervisors told that don't worry about that thing, okay, so I was too relaxed, and then I tried to find out the proper explanation why this thing has happened, okay, based on the earlier literatures. But one of the findings of my papers, actually I didn't find any support of the references. In case of that, I must put some strong justification, a strong explanation why this thing has happened. Okay, this is called discussion of the findings. You must have a good control over your discussion part. You know that this is one of the most difficult part in a paper, and if you can discuss your findings clearly, a new way, that means there is a huge chance to accept your papers. Implications or contributions of the study. Okay, this is another crucial part. Implications and contribution study, actually this can be actually 3 ways in a good journals. As earlier I mentioned, few days ago I got a corrections from a good journals from MRL. They told that you have to put 3 types of implications or contributions. Then I asked, I know about 2, but what is the third one? They told that theoretical contribution must, managerial contribution must, and last one is methodological contribution. Okay, this is really important thing, but actually for the sometimes methodological contribution is not essential. Okay, theoretical contribution means that after, using the theoretical assumptions, whether the assumptions are really related to your hypothesis or not, really related to your findings or not, you need to let them, the readers, that yes, it has already violated the theoretical assumptions. That's why this theoretical assumption is not appropriate in terms of developing countries like Bangladesh, India, or Pakistan. Okay, you need to know. And practical contribution, actually, what is it? Practical contribution means who will be benefited using your findings, who will be you benefited. Okay, this is just practical example. Okay, so when we'll do practical webinar, actually you will let know the in details how you can design the good theoretical contribution and practical contribution. But theoretical contribution basically focus on the theoretical assumptions, and practical contribution usually focuses on who will be benefited. Another thing is limitations and future studies. This is really important thing. Okay, so what you didn't cover in your thesis or in your paper, what you didn't cover, that is your limitations. And apart from the limitations, it is your suggestions, it is your responsibility to give suggestions for other researchers to cover this area. That's why I have written here that limitations and future studies. That means based on your limitations, you have to give some suggestions for the other researchers that if you do this, you can just cover this limitation. For example, in my paper, actually, I focused only the educational institution. That means private educational institution. This is one of my limitations. Okay, so my suggestions can be, okay, fine. I want to make a comparison between the educational institution and other service related people, other service, for example, banks. So what the work family conflict is more, whether bank employees or academicians, that can be happen. That means you can make a comparison. This is my suggestion. And if now anybody wants to work based on my suggestion, this is my gap, and he can just fill up this gap. That's why it is limitations and area for research. Okay, for example, I have used only quantity technique in my today's webinar, but this is my limitation. But I can suggest you that yes, in future we can make another qualitative research webinar, or we can just make a mixed method webinar. This is limitation, and you should know, your readers or your editors, that how the people can overcome from these limitations. This is very simple one. Limitations and future research. Though it is a very simple one, but you cannot ignore it. You must focus on this thing. And last one is conclusion. Okay, conclusion means that when it's one kind of summary of your whole things. Like you, in the conclusion part, if you follow these 4 things, I think you must have a very good structured conclusion. Okay, like if you have just interpret and summarize of the findings, that means you have already summarized your findings and just interpret that what are the major findings and what is the finding meanings, what is the significance of the findings. And another one is that you should let them the theoretical contribution and practical contribution, and based on this thing, you have to give some suggestions or recommendations. And last part of the paper, you should maintain, last part of the conclusion, actually, you should highlight your fundamental limitations and how the authors or readers, or especially the other authors, other researchers, can overcome from this limitation. And if you just focus on these 4 important things, I think you will get a good conclusion. Citations and references. You know that this thing, actually, citations and references actually vary from journal to journal. Okay, so you have to totally depends on the guidelines of journal. But the most important thing that we are more focusing on references, but we are not more focusing on citations. You know that some of the journal citations style is totally different. Though references style is same, but citation style is quite different. So you should more focus on both citations and references. The references can be the different ways, like American Psychological Association, MLA, Harvard, Chicago. But you know that now, like Rootless, they are just practicing the in-house practice. That means they have just created their own style. So whatever it is, you should focus on the guidelines of the journal authority. But whatever the journal authority is, you should be very careful about the 4 or 5 important things. Number 1, appropriate name of the authors, year, title, okay, name of the journal, volume number, issue number, pages. You know that when most of the researchers will do just put the titles in the Google Scholar and just copy it. You know that some of the time I found that the citations of Google Scholar are not appropriate. They have done so many mistakes in the Google Scholar. That's why it's your own responsibility to go for the Google Scholar as well as to go for the main papers and make sure that yes, page numbers, references, volume are appropriate. Okay, this is one of the most important thing, because when I submitted some of my papers, I just want to give an example. A few days ago, I just got a correction from Inter Science. You know that almost 50 references I did mistake. Out of 100, out of 80, almost 50 references I put based on Google Scholar, and they have the cross-ref. They have checked it and found that page number is not accurate. Okay, volume number is not accurate. So I have to correct all of this thing again. Okay, so be careful about this thing. Don't depend on Google Scholar totally, because I have already mentioned that some of the references, page number, volume number in Google Scholar, it is wrongly written. Okay, and last one is question and answer. Please, you can send your questions based on the today's session to the host through the chat box. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Your discussion was really amazing, and you explained those topics easily and nicely. Hope all the participants have understood this, and they are really engaging in this webinar.
Yeah, I have found that almost all time 100, more
Yes.
than 100. Yeah, that's a good sign. Alhamdulillah.
Now, I would like to request our team member if to collect the question and ask to our speaker.
So thanks a million to the speakers, and special thanks to our guests.
Can you raise your voice, please? I cannot. Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit higher.
Can you hear me right now? So
Yes, I
thanks
can hear you.
million to our speaker, and special thanks to our guest for today's session. This is the first webinar, so hopefully we have done it well, and maybe we have done some mistakes, a few mistakes. So please beg us our pardon. And you guys are cordially, participants are cordially invited to ask any questions. If you have, you can write the questions to the chat box, or after delivering a speech of 90 minutes, it's very simple that the speakers will be exhausted. So we will take a few questions from you. That Dr. Jamaluddin from Metropolitan University has been raising questions a few minutes back to the host. That speaker, dear Dr. Muhammad Mizan Rahman, the question is for you. That how many objectives do we write in a research paper?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad Jamaluddin sir. Actually, he is my colleague, and not colleague, he is like my elder brother. And what is happening? Okay, I think you can see me. Am I correct?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, no
Yes,
problem.
sir.
Okay, so actually, Dr. Jamal is like my elder brother. Okay, so thank you for the questions, as well as he is my research partner as well. Okay, so thank you for the questions. Okay, basically, it is suggested that research objective basically two types, like fundamental objective as well as specific objectives. Okay, so when you will select your fundamental objective, try to select the fundamental objective in a such way where you can, you can cover all of the variables from your title. That means when anybody reads the fundamental objective, they will be able to know that yes, this is the research. Okay, this is the title, and title already the objective covers all of the components of the title. But in a research, there may be so many variables, like objective. Your fundamental objective to test the mediation effect. Okay, the specific objectives can be like, if before going to mediation effect, your responsibility is to test the direct effect. So direct effect can be one objective, and direct to indirect another objective. That means specific objectives can be more than one, but fundamental objective must be one. But based on the fundamental objective, yes, you can just classify, you can just formulate different objectives in order to fill your problem statement and gaps clearly. That means your problem statement and gaps will tell you based on your title that how many objectives are essential. But usually two types, that fundamental objective usually one, and specific objectives more than one. I think you got the answer, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mizan. So another Another question from a proud participant that after his name is Muhammad Monur Islam. After completing graduation, when we want to publish a paper, we found misguidance and cannot reach the accurate journal. How can we fix it?
Can you repeat it again, please?
Okay. So when we should start writing paper,
Okay.
and from where we can find the accurate journal.
Okay. Okay, these are the two things. Okay, these are the two things. You know that, yes, this is a very interesting thing, especially for the research-based university like UPM, when you should start your writing your paper. Okay, when you already completed, already in the third semester, my suggestion is that already, because there are so many types of papers, like conceptual papers, review-based papers, another one is full empirical papers. But when you are the third semester, already you will finish your first seminar. That means after finishing your first seminar, you can write a systematic literature-based paper because you don't have any data. Okay, so you can start from your third semester even. But when you will go for the CE, that is comprehensive exam, you can write a conceptual paper because you have already used the theoretical framework. Okay, now how you can select the good journal? The most easiest one is to select the good journal through the schemago. Okay, so in your selected journal, just write down the name of the journal schemago. You will get the good name of the journal. But sometimes the journal cannot be relevant to your papers. You know that this is very disgusting thing, especially for my research area. Sometimes I submitted my paper in the human resource journal. They told that no, this journal is not appropriate. Rather, you should submit it for the psychological journal. That's why you can just take a strategy that there are journal suggested. You can just write the abstract or this thing and then send to the editor, and they will suggest you, please submit your paper to this journal. Okay, but schemago is one of the best sources to select a good journal.
Yes, thank you. Our guests have already answered these questions. You can go through the journal finder, or Willy says any of the platform you can find the journal finder. So the next question is for you, Dr. Mizan from Imtiaz Hussain. How do we generalize the findings? What should be the consideration for finding or generalizing the findings?
Okay, generalizing the findings, and you know that when you will write a paper, in the beginning of your research, you need to decide whether your findings will be generalization or whether your findings should be the testing the assumption of theories. Okay, so if your intention is to make your findings generalization, you have to use the different softwares. Yeah, usually you should collect more data. Okay, for example, your intention is to make your findings generalization and you are using CBSEM, covariance based structural equation modeling. If it is UPM, I'm sure that immediately they will send back to you. Okay, go and just rework on your thesis. Okay, go and, but yes, there are some good journal also, there are some good publisher also that they will check it whether your intention is testing your assumption or generalization. But if your intention is to make generalization, please try to collect a little bit of more data and try to focus on like SPSS or PLS, not CBSEM. I think you got the answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mizan. So if we want to take some more questions, if we allow us, then the question is from Shaharul Islam. How to select accurate theory in my research?
That's a very interesting thing. You know that this was most struggling part to write a paper, not only paper, to write a thesis. Okay, so it's your responsibility to find out all of your theories. Remember it, all the theories, whatever used previously in relation to your title or in relation to your variables. Now you should read those all theories carefully and try to find out the limitation of some theories and try to select an appropriate or two appropriate theories based on your objective, based on your problem statement. This is really, really hard because just I can give my example. During my PhD, actually, I had to almost analyze 5 or 6 models. Okay, and 6 or 5 or 6 theories, but I found that I need to explain why I didn't use these theories and why I didn't use these models, rather why I have been selected these 2 theories. These 2 theories, selection of these theories, you have to very, very carefully. You can discuss with your supervisor and you can discuss with your other people. For example, for my case, actually I discussed with Dr. Jamal to find out my theory. Okay, so you have to be depend on some experts. Okay, that's why I always suggested to submit your paper into the good journal. When you will submit your paper in a good journal, definitely the editors are very expert. Just I want to give an example. I submitted one of my papers in Work, Employment and Society, the WOS, Work, Employment and Society, in a state journal from National University of Singapore. The editor gave me so many corrections. The length of my paper was 18 pages and she gave me the correction 7 pages. You see, that means 18 pages paper, whole paper, and she gave me 7 pages corrections. And she told that this theory selection is not appropriate. You can go for this theory. Even she sent me some good journals that this theory you can get some support from these journals. So that's why my suggestion, you should write some quality research paper and try to submit it very top journal, because their editors are very expert. So editors will suggest you, or any expert will suggest you to select a good appropriate theory. I think you get the answer.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, the speaker. So the next questions are from Nafizur Rahman. He is a student of Bangladesh University of Professionals. His question is, should we use the subheadings for research gap and problem statements separately, or should we just include a paragraph mentioning the gap or problem?
This is really an important question. Okay, so my suggestion is, don't try to make subheadings in a paper. It's not a good way. Okay, just try to make a different single paragraph where your problem statement and gaps are put. First example, the introduction, usually introduction, first background, then motivation, and third paragraph, usually third paragraph, okay, usually contains of research gap and problem statement. Don't try to put in the separate headings. And if the journal authority asks you to put the different headings, it should be in introduction, but it does not look good. Rather, you can just make a good paragraph.
Okay. So should we take another questions, Dr. Mizan?
Yes, no problem. No problem.
So the question is from Bello Mahmoud. His question is, what are the differences between the three gaps: content, context, and theory gaps?
Okay. Brother, another thing is, just I'm telling you within a short period of time, but in the next webinar, when I will give you the practical example, then you will be more clearer. Okay, content gaps means actually in your particular area. For example, you are working in Nigeria. Okay, like still the work-life balance, work-family balance is a burning issue in Nigeria, because this thing is not, happen in Nigeria seriously. That is a context gap. But content gap is that whether you have a new research variables or not. Okay, whether you can put a new variables like moderated mediation or mediation moderated, okay, and like 3-angle moderation. Okay, this is the content gap. And last one is theoretical gap. As earlier I mentioned, you need to criticize the other theories. Why you didn't use the theory? Why this theory? This is the theoretical gap. But I'm requesting you that please try to attend our next seminar, whether it is the practical, then it will be more clearer to you.
So hopefully we can finish our question and answer session. One more last question from our student. Actually, he is Muhammad Abdul Muhaimin Mahadi. How do I know when my literature review is finished? This is from personal interest. I am asking the questions to you.
Okay. You know that when you will able to focus on the 3 chronology, like you have already given the proper justification of your concept, research variables, then theory, it's okay, fine. Then empirical literature review. That means you are able to show all types of relationship among your research variables. Then you can understand that you literature review part is over.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Doctor. So many participants are frequently asking questions. So we have some time limits. We are requesting all of our participants to ask the questions if you have. So would you please visit our page? We will upload these slides as well as the recording video to our page. Then you can write your questions to there. We will try to answer all of the questions. Or even you can send us your questions to our email ID. Then we can definitely write the answer and send it to you. Thank you all of the participants.
And thank you for all, and I hope that maybe this is the first time actually in my online platform. Okay, but during my physically I took so many seminars, but it's, you know that in online platform this is my first time, so I may do so many mistakes. Okay, you can disagree something with me, but please take it positive way. And if you just encourage me in future, actually we are going to arrange so many seminars with some experts from other countries, inshallah. So stay with us. Okay, inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mahmoud.
I believe everyone is well delighted with the discussion session. We are really amazed by the response of our audience, as well as they were really engaging. And I like to give a special thanks to our guest, Professor Dr. Noor Azam Ali and Dr. Amir Hamza Zantan, and Speaker Dr. Muhammad Mizanur Rahman. It is to be highlighted that very soon we are going to arrange a large program for all of you. Hope you will stay connected with us in Facebook Facebook and LinkedIn. To connect in LinkedIn, please visit www.linkedin.com/company/CRSBD007, and to stay connected with Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/CRSBD007/. Very soon we are launching our YouTube channel also. Thank you everyone once again.